Science and technology. This is the field. Science and technology, let's view it from the lens of the Quran. What do we have? Naturalism. Naturalism is the underlying philosophy under which all of science is practiced today. Naturalism is a conjecture. It is an assumption. It is a philosophy. And it is basically very, very problematic. Because what is naturalism? Again, let me revise what naturalism is. It is this view, this philosophy, this assumption that whatever physical phenomena that you see in the world, you are supposed to interpret and understand it by means of explanations which belong to the physical world, in the sense there must never be a resort to any metaphysical explanation. So when you see water flowing downwards, you are obligated to say that the water flowing downwards is because of gravity, and that's it. Put an end to that. Anything other than that, if you give an explanation other than that, that would be considered unscientific. Now, the problem with that is most, in the Quran, when you read the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discusses natural processes, and he says that we send down the winds, and from the winds you get the rain. But he says we send down the winds, and we send down. So there is a resort to metaphysics. Our scientists in the Islamic Golden Age, they understood science, they developed science, but there was never these, artificial boundaries that you cannot resort to the metaphysical, any agency, and it will never be considered science if you do so. These artificial boundaries have been placed because the people who are producing this science are secular people. They are averse to religion, or at least they are, they have no, sort of affiliation to any religious ideology. And for me as a Muslim, that's completely, that's completely unwarranted. Okay, you don't have an affiliation to any religious authority. You cannot force that definition and that dogma on our practice. It cannot become a dogma. So you understand, naturalism is a very difficult thing. And then there is the issue of ethics. Today we have science being developed which have, these subjects have serious ethical issues. Gene editing, artificial intelligence, serious ethical issues of what are the long-term prospects of a technology like gene editing, biological warfare. What are the implications? If you can edit a gene, if you can make a virus more harmful, that's called a gain of function studies on a virus. You can make it even more infectious, or you can make it very, very harmful. What are the implications? That's serious, that has serious ethical implications for all of us. And from the point of view of Islam, that needs an appraisal, an Islamic Quranic appraisal as well. Again, social domain, racial, rational deconstruction of materialism. We need to assess this philosophy. The good part is, even from a scientific point of view, let's say quantum physics. Quantum physics, which is the dominant, theory in science that describes, that's the most successful theory about the world, that deconstructs materialism. But you're not told that. We don't know that, because we are so indoctrinated with materialism that there's no room for rationally analyzing it. Epistemology is how you think about knowledge, how you think about, this is the theory of knowledge. And this is very important. A civilization essentially is understood by how it understands knowledge. If you think knowledge is just in books and it's just given from person to person, and that is your view, inevitably you are going to deny knowledge that comes from non-material sources, non-physical sources. And guess what? The Quran is exactly that sort of knowledge. That is, direct revelation. It had no physical medium. It was direct communication between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was the basis of our understanding, of our intellectual revolution that we had in Islamic history. And this is essentially what is denied in today's educational curriculums. Very problematic, very, very problematic. Now, what I want to do is essentially take you through just give you an example, a taste of what it feels like, what it's going to be like when you apply the Quran, when you view a particular domain, a particular thing through the lens of the Quran. And let's take science and technology, because that's my field. So the crisis is that you have a basic framework of science, which is naturalism. Naturalism is shirk. Because why is it shirk? I'm going to take you to that. Naturalism is shirk. Let's go through what Sheikh Hamza Yusuf, he said the materialist today is the mushrik. Mushrik is somebody who commits shirk, who associates partners with Allah. And to associate partners with Allah is an unforgivable sin. Everything will be forgiven. But this will not be forgiven unless a person does tawbah. Anybody who gives the attributes of God to other than God is committing shirk. And so if you're an evolutionary biologist and you believe that nature has a mechanism and you don't acknowledge God, that is shirk. Nature has become a term for God. So we need to understand this idea of naturalism, that everything that is happening is just naturally from natural processes. These are just, one natural thing, one physical process leads to another physical process, leads to another physical process. And all of our explanations and all of our understanding needs to be in this box. We cannot resort to any metaphysical explanation, never attribute it to God. That's the claim of naturalism. This is shirk. This is shirk. This is the essence of shirk, because creation is the attribute of Allah. It is Allah who creates. Nature is a blind force. Nature is working on the command of Allah. But naturalism says, no, it's all nature. What's happening is just laws of nature. This, again, is an assumption. This is conjecture. And we as Muslims must we are not obliged to accept this. This doesn't make science any more scientific, because I discussed it before that we had science, at least 900 years of science that did not, accept this idea, that did not hold on to this idea, that did not produce science in this framework. So the shirk of naturalism is the crisis. This is the problematic basic framework. Physical world is supposed to be a manifest sign of Allah. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to apply the Quran on science and technology and how it's developed in today's world. The moment you apply the Quran, what we are going to see is that for a Muslim, the physical world is supposed to be the manifest sign of Allah. And contrarily, science leads to atheism. This is the paradox that we have today. What that does is, when you have science leading to atheism and science being very successful in today's world, you have materialism. Maybe, this idea that the physical world is all that you have, which leads to an abuse of resources, an environmental crisis, ethical crisis, genetic engineering, nuclear stockpiling, chemical pollution. So it's one problem after another, one destruction after another. It starts from an assumption, which is naturalism, which then leads to another sort of an assumption, which is materialism. Physicalism leads to crisis that manifests in the environmental domain. What do? We apply the Quran. And we get the solution that naturalism must be eliminated. This idea of absolute naturalism is very problematic. The moment you do that, Iman is safeguarded. The physical world is supposed to be the manifest sign of Allah. Science is supposed to be the shortest route then to Iman. If the physical world is the manifest sign of Allah, science would in principle be the shortest route to Iman. And then when you have spiritualism instead of materialism, what you have is then emphasis on the hereafter rather than on the dunya. The resources are safeguarded. The human being is safeguarded. Elimination of ethical and environmental crisis. Like that, the moment you apply the Quran.